Hello, FPL managers. Welcome to the new episode of the FPL Optimized podcast. Welcome to episode number 82. I am Bas, the casual manager, and my co host is Sertalp, the data scientist. This is the podcast in which we combine analytics with the good old eye test. Data or grass, or data and grass? That's the question. And blank game week 26 is behind us now, and so are the FA Cup fifth round games, which gives us a complete picture of the blanks in game week 29, and there are many. So, whether you'll be using a free hit, a wild card, or just planning to manage it with regular transfers, different strategies are possible, but at least you should have a plan ready. And I must admit that I don't have one yet. I hope the discussion here today with Sertalp will help me. So, Sertalp, let's do a quick review of how game week 26 went for us, and then let's focus on the game weeks that lie ahead of us.
Certainly. So game week 26 was okay, I will say. I got 51 points. My game week rank was around 4 million, so an average game week for me. But at my rank, it means that I got a nice red arrow from
Yeah.
1000 to 1600 now.
Yeah.
So well, essentially it boiled down to my differentials blanking, and then also Foden didn't blank, which also didn't help me with our head-to-head competition. But yeah, it was an okay week. Like, it could have been much worse, but yeah, I'm grateful it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, I changed my plan a bit during the week because I think last time in the podcast I said I would go for the Villa guys to avoid the free hit scenario in 29. But the reason for that was that, I thought I could do without the free hit and save it for later. But then I was thinking, and I was listening to some other pods, and they were saying, well, actually, you might not need a free hit later. So I said, yeah, also a good point. So, so instead, I went for a few of the Wolves guys. Luckily, I took Ait Nouri, so that one was the hero of my game week. But I also went for Wang, as did many other people, and that was disappointing. But overall, not too bad. 55 points. The defense let me down with Walker and Dubravka not playing, and while I didn't have anyone on the bench left to cover for them. But for the rest of the team, midfield and attack, they did their job. So yeah, I managed to make the gap between us a bit smaller again. So that's good news for me.
Yeah, 14 to 12. That's nice.
14 to 12. I'm still in the race. Yeah. All right, and let's switch attention now to the upcoming game weeks. And Sertalp, I think we want to start with looking some at the fixtures, for example, from Ben Crellin's expectations.
Yeah, certainly. So we will cover a few things. The first one is the fixtures. As you mentioned, game week 29 blanks are known right now. And we have many teams blanking. 12 teams are blanking in that game week. For most people, I think using their free hits in 29 will be optimal, unless you are kind of wildcarding ahead. Even if you are wildcarding ahead of 29, it's possible that you can make like wildcard, let's say 28, and then free hit 29. That might be a consideration for some people. But anyway, so it's a huge blank game week. And game week 34 is quite interesting. We have like teams that have certainly having one fixture in that game week. And we also have teams who are likely to get a fixture. But the probabilities are all over the place. I mean, I strongly recommend you to check Ben's spreadsheet on this.
Right.
Ben Crellin's. It is, well, obviously it is better to have players from teams who are likely to have more fixtures. And you can easily see that in this chart. Like, for example, Arsenal has a 15% chance of having two games that week. So expected fixture is 1.15, for example. And for Bournemouth, it is 1.59. And for like Brighton, it is only 1.04. So it's more likely that they will only have a single single game that week. And there's even a possibility of having a blank for them. There's an 8% chance of having no fixtures at all. So these probabilities might help you to pick a wildcard team if you are wildcarding now, or if you are thinking to wildcard in this horizon. There's not too much to say about these. I mean, besides checking the probabilities, I mean, game week 37, also, like, there are lots of uncertainties. And so when I am running the optimization now, so one of the questions I receive is whether I'm using these probabilities or whether I'm using binary fixtures, meaning that, like, okay, like, there are some like possibilities right here, like which team will move forward to the which teams will have blanks and doubles in 34 and 37 based on the cup, and also obviously the networks. Well, you can certainly use binary fixtures, and I will talk about them in a second. But in this case, I feel like, well, at least personally, I feel a little bit more comfortable working with these probabilities, like as an average.
All right.
So if you're watching on YouTube, as you know, FPL review allows you to enter fixture probabilities, and these are the fixture probabilities based on Ben Crellin's estimations. So you can see that there are some significant possibilities for some of the games, namely Brighton Manchester City game with 80% probability goes to game week 34. And there is also more than 70% chance of Crystal Palace Newcastle go to 34. Manchester United versus Newcastle going to 34 with 73% possibility. Manchester United versus Sheffield, again with 70% possibility it goes to game week 34. And also, well, I will talk about this, but Everton Liverpool, Ben Crellin thinks that with 90% probability it will go to game week 34. And only strong possibility for game week 37 that I can see is Tottenham versus Manchester City, 70% probability. But there's also a 64% possibility for Fulham versus Liverpool. But there's a big but here. So I was listening Planet FPL this morning, and James said that he received a tip about Everton versus Liverpool game going to 37. He's not sure how reliable the tip is. He said like he has no reason to not believe the person. So it's shared in good faith, he mentioned. But also that makes things a little bit complicated. First of all, Everton versus Liverpool going to 37, meaning that there is a chance that Liverpool's title, like with the possibility, it might be a little bit like there could be security concerns around that game, and also like Everton's possibility of going down. So because of it, I think it's more likely that they won't want that fixture that late. But suppose, like, assume that that's true. If Everton Liverpool goes to 37, then it affects every game, like most of the games here. Then because we were estimating Fulham versus Liverpool going to 37 with 64% possibility, and then that's no longer true, and then there's a domino effect, so that some of these fixtures change places. So FPL.team is a great website for, so they have a planner so that you can actually plan your transfers and see how many fixtures you will get, like how many doubles, blanks you will get for your team and your transfer plan. I strongly recommend the website. It's amazing. They also have this projected fixture from Planet FPL. So there's a button. If you click on it, whatever Planet FPL guys are predicting for this horizon, it just changes the fixture in that way. So it is very useful to compare this with what Ben Crellin is predicting, because, well, now we have two different paths based on a tip we have received. So like we don't know which one will happen at the end, but well, it has consequences on the team selection. So I guess it is better to pick a squad that you think, which is, you know, better prepared to both cases, like both Planet FPL's projection and also Ben Crellin's estimated probabilities. you can use optimization solver with either of these fixtures. Like you can go to FPL review, set the fixtures, download your CSV, and then feed it to Python solver. So, in short, so it's not as easy as clicking the button. We talked about this like quite a few times, but now it is more difficult than ever. And I can only imagine how difficult it is for people who are doing this manually without a solver. But yeah, I think there is a huge edge lying here based on whichever the fixture probability you believe in here. You can kind of maximize number of doublers. You can minimize the players blanking in your team. But yeah, so just wanted to mention. And also there is Talha Nadeem, who was also a guest in our podcast. He's also approaching this from an angle of what the broadcasters will like. And he said if Brighton lose to Rome in Europe League, and then Manchester City, Liverpool, Chelsea, and Wolves reach FA Cup semi-finals, then in game week 34 he expects these games like Brighton versus City, Chelsea versus Tottenham, Wolves versus Arsenal, Fulham versus Liverpool, Manchester United versus Sheffield, and Crystal Palace versus Newcastle. And Brighton versus Chelsea can go either 35 or 36. And for game week 37, it is Tottenham versus City, Arsenal versus Chelsea, Wolves versus Bournemouth, and Everton versus Liverpool. And as I mentioned, so there's a big question mark about whether Everton versus Liverpool can go to 37 or not for other reasons.
But looking at this one, then game week 34 looks like the bigger double game week, if I understand this chart.
Yes, that's correct.
Well, I think so far we were mainly talking about 37 to be the bigger one. So I think also on that one, then we still need to see how that will work out. Still not completely clear, it seems.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason why wildcarding now is a little bit difficult. Because like based on which path do you think will happen, your selection might be a little bit different. And so for people who are planning to keep their wildcards. So, well, the thing is, game week 29 is an important game week. Game week 34 and 37, obviously because of doubles and blanks. It is better to separate these game weeks from each other as a team. And if you have a free hit and a wild card, then it's very easy. You can easily do free hit 29 and then wild card in 35, and then dead end in 34 that way. And then use bench boost either in 34 or 37, depending on whichever will be the bigger double game week. So that's why I kind of see the appeal of wildcarding in 35, so that you are just splitting these fixtures. You can wildcard in 31, around 31, and try to use your free hit either in 34 or 37. That will also probably help to maximize number of doublers. But again, so whichever route you choose, I think there is some difference in expected value or projected points. You might end up with the suboptimal chip strategy, but as long as you are kind of paying attention to what are the possibilities, even if let's say I am on the optimal chip strategy, there's no guarantee that my players won't get injured, so that I will lose EV at the end, even if my plan was correct and then I got the fixtures correctly. So I don't think it is that much important that you get the chip strategy exactly right to the digit. But obviously it is important to check the expected value and see which routes are maximizing your projected points, at least with what we know right now.
Whew. No, definitely.
That was long.
And I think especially with game week 29 now being a big blank game week, right? We were hoping for some surprises in the FA Cup. It didn't happen. So as a result, we only have 4 games. So if you don't free hit, then of course you need to consider your transfers now to kind of prepare for 29, so you have sufficient players. And you might not need 11, but maybe you just need 6 or 7, but at least that's something you should know now, right? You should know whether you want to free hit in 29 or not. I think that's probably one of the biggest decisions you need to make, from my point of view.
That's correct. I think well, we will probably have a look at it when we get really close, like closer to 30, like 29. Obviously, you probably know how many like players you have for 29, and then you can say that, okay, I will use my free hit in 29. But there is some kind of a possibility of getting more fixtures by using your free hit in, let's say, 34. If this happens, like if you have lots of doubles, so maybe it will be optimal to have maybe only like 7 playing players in 29, and then you maximize 34 doublers. That's also a possibility. But I like, my intuition is that free hit 29 will be, first of all, very popular, because no one is really that prepared for that game week. No. And also it might be optimal to use your free hit in 29. Well, because you can, by dead ending and using your wild card, you can still maximize game week 34 and 37 doublers. But if you don't have your free hit, or if you have already used your wild card, then it might be better to use your free hit in 34 or 37. Otherwise, I think 29 is clear.
Yeah. Well, and there is still a debate whether you want to use your free hit in that game week with just 4 games. Because I saw some people saying, you know, why to use the free hit, and because they're not really very interesting teams and not really very interesting games. So it feels a bit like a wasted opportunity. So that will be, again, a consideration, right? You can either go in with less players and you hope that not too much will happen in that game week, or you go for your free hit, you go for 11 good players, and
well, it is all about how much difference you have compared to the field. If no one has 29 players, and if you have a full team of 29 players, you might end up with having a big difference to the field. And then maybe in game week 34, maybe you will card in 31, and then you will have a very similar team to the teams who are like free hitting in 34. So then it won't matter much, and you will be ahead. But again, you're right. I mean, there are sort of like, well, there are multiple arguments around these games, and I think there is some truth to all of it. But we'll see.
And as always, it's very much team dependent, right? If you already have a few West Ham players, a few Villa players, a few Spurs players, then you probably look pretty okay for game week 29. I think in my case, I only have 3, if I'm not mistaken. I have Porro and Richarlison. Both of them might be injured. And I have Watkins. So
for one of the solves today, I was planning to use your team. And I was trying to check, like, if you can make it to game week 29 without using your free hit. But then I saw your team, and Solver was taking 5 hits. If I wasn't forcing free hits, so I can't.
Well, as I said, I kind of made the decision last week, right? Because I was thinking to go for 2 Villa players. In the end, I went for 2 Wolves players. So that kind of made the decision for me, I would say. Anyway.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Lots of interesting information.
And I just want to give a shout out to all these resources that you can find more about fixtures. Well, obviously, we are not the experts in this, and then these are the people that we follow regularly. Well, Ben Crellin, everyone knows Ben Crellin, but it is at Ben Crellin on Twitter. Talha Nadeem, it is Talha_Nadeem_90 on Twitter. And Planet FPL podcast is an amazing podcast, and they're kind of like the experts in fixtures and fixture possibilities. It is at Planet FPL Pod on Twitter, and also the website we mentioned was fpl.team. It's a website that you can use, Planet FPL projected fixtures. Beside these, so these are kind of like the basic resources, and there are also people who are just aggregating these resources to come up with, visualizations or sometimes information. Simon, it is analytic_FPL, shares like double possibilities, blank possibilities based on these individuals, and also runs like chip optimization solves, so you can benefit from his information. And also Johnny Curry. It is FPL_spaceman. As you know, he comes up with the Venn diagram, so we are just looking forward to him again generating something so we can understand some of these stuff a little bit better. But these are the resources that we want to give a shout.
Great. Yeah. Thanks for doing that. Okay, so did you then use any of the data already to run a few of the scenarios?
Yes, let's talk about optimal teams.
Okay.
Well, the first thing I checked was, well, if someone is wildcarding now, 27, and then planning to use free hit in 29, and then let's also assume that bench boosting in 37. For this run, I'm using Ben Crellin's estimations. For a team around 102.0 team value, and the decay rate I'm using is 1.017. So this is the decay rate that will minimize the decay in minutes in FPL reviews projections. Just to reiterate what it is, when you get expected value data from resources like FPL review, you can maybe see that minutes are going down. Like, for example, let's say for Haaland, it is 90 minutes this game week, but then 85 the game week after, and then 80. The reason is there's a possibility of this player getting injured. So we are kind of like using that. So 1.017 decay base means that I will assume that everything will go as is. So, and this decay will increase EV, making it somewhat uniform across the horizon. We have talked about this, but it is kind of like recommended to use a decay rate like this so that you can evaluate chip strategies better. Otherwise, solvers will always favor using chips immediately, which is not always the best idea. So if we use these, then the team we get is Ederson in the goal, again, obviously the premium goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Gabriel, Saliba, Robertson in defense, Saka, Palmer, Richarlison, Son in midfield, Solanke, Haaland, and Isaac in forward. And on the bench we have Neto, Senesi, Garnacho, and Reguilon. And we will again talk about the free hit 29, but for that game week we have a team of Kaminsky, me, Doughty, Reguilon, Gibbs White, Madison, Richarlison, Son, Bowen, Watkins, Tony. And on the bench we have Martinez, Avoni, Pau, and Osho.
Okay.
So this is the optimal wildcard team if you are free hitting. And then the objective score we get is 931. So this is a score of how good this plan is. And a lineup projected points of 810 until the end of the horizon. And the second run I got was keep wildcard the same, keep bench boost the same, but move free hit to 34. So like if it is better to free hit in 34 if you are wildcarding now is the question. And the team changes a little bit. The optimal team is composed of Raya in the goal, Gabriel, Senesi, Smith in defense, Saka, Palmer, Richarlison, Son in midfield, and Watkins, Solanke, Tony in forward. On the bench we have Kaminsky, Barkley, Lodi, and Reguilon. So, and the objective score here is 927, and it was 931 for free hitting in 29.
Okay.
So as you see, there is almost like 4 points difference between using your free hit in 29 and 34 with the average fixtures we got from Ben Crellin. It might look like, well, it looks like it is better to use free hit in 29. But again, this is assuming that the average fixtures that we will have in 34. So it might get worse, it might get better. So, but yeah, it's borderline. And lineup expected value is 805. So there's 5 EV difference in terms of your lineups between these two plans. As you see, it is not that different. So whether you are planning to use your free hit in 34 or 29, if you are wildcarding now, you can actually get somewhat like same EV, or it is somewhat very close. There's only like 5 EV difference out of 800.
It's interesting to see no Haaland in this scenario.
Yeah, Solar was
Well,
selling Haaland in most of the plans, but yeah,
okay.
this just confirms it. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
I think one main difference here is that in Game Week 29 here, well, you don't have a full squad, like a full lineup, which is funny
Oh.
because like you are wildcarding in 27, so you know 29 is ahead
Mm.
of you. Despite that, Solver says that okay, you don't need 11 players that game week if you want to maximize your expected value. So we have Gabriel and Senesi who are both blanking in 29, so it has 9 players that game week.
Okay.
But compare the EV, so in game week 29 it is only 41 EV if you're not, well, free hitting. But if you free hit, it is 51. So 10 EV more with a full lineup. That makes sense. But everything else is impacted. For example, if you are free hitting in 29, your game week 28 EV is 78. But in the second round, it is 82. So there is always these differences. So obviously, you are losing some EV on game week 29, but then you can actually increase your EV, in the game weeks around it. And also, game week 34 is such an interesting game week that you can maximize your EV. You can increase your EV in game week 33 and 35 by choosing players, who are better in those game weeks, but not necessarily 34. Because you're free hitting in 34, you will always get a much better EV. So that then the difference is reduced to 5. So again, the conclusion or takeaway from this is as long as you are kind of using a planned approach or a solver or an analytical tool, I think you will be good to get prepared for these, 29, 34, 37. And there won't be too much difference, in my opinion, in expected value.
Okay.
But yeah, just for information, this is the team we get.
So the conclusion is it doesn't matter.
For people who are using the solver, it doesn't matter. But I think there will be a huge advantage to solver users against the field. Well, maybe I shouldn't promote this much, then everyone will start using a solver and then the edge will disappear. But yeah, that's what I think. I mean,
that's what you want anyway, right? That's your end goal.
Yes, I want an analytics winner. I feel like we will have an analytics winner this season. We will see.
Oh, okay.
I'm very hopeful.
But then you can quit next season.
That would be ideal, yes.
All right, let's see. Okay, well, that's good already. Enough things to consider. Is there anything else you add on this?
Yes. 2 more things. The first one is I actually asked in the Discord server if there's any team that is somewhat prepared for 29, maybe can get away without using free hit. I just wanted to check if Solver is taking hits for 29 to cover it. If you are kind of thinking of dead ending in 29.
Yeah.
Because if you are not dead ending, just like the example we have mentioned, sometimes Solver says that, yeah, you don't need 11 players, because the game week before and after you will need players. So, you can have 9 players and maximize your EV that way. But in this case, it is Thomas Daines' team. ID is 43845 if you want to check. And the solver says that he needs to solve He-Chan for Sun this game week.
Yeah.
And then in game week 28, it makes 3 transfers. So it's taking 2 hits. And then the solver is making Raya to Kaminsky. So because Kaminsky has a double. Walker to Senesi. Again, Senesi has a double. And Foden to Barkley. Again, Barkley has a double. And then from game week 28 to 29, it sells Saka for Gibbs White. And also Haaland for Tony. That way, in game week 29, this team has a full lineup. But it's taking 2 hits in 28 and another hit in 29. So 3 hits in total, which was surprising to me to see. And then the objective score is 161. And then the lineup EV is 193, but then it's taking 3 hits. So if you just remove it, it is 181 lineup EV. And then I checked the same team again, this time telling solver not to take any hits, just to see, which of these transfers are more critical than others. Then it makes only 3 transfers. It sells Hee-chan for Son this game week. That move doesn't change. Raya to Kaminsky in game week 28, and Haaland to Tony in 29. And then if we check like this, then it has 10 players in game week 29, but obviously has less doublers in 28. Objective scores decreases from 161 to 159, so only 2. Lineup EV is 179, so it is again 2 EV less. So as you see, there is not much difference between these two plans, like 181 and 179, but you are taking like a 12th hit in the first plan. If I was Thomas, I would probably take the hits, even though like it doesn't feel right to be taking hits. Well, assuming that he won't use his free hit in 29 and then maybe wildcard in 30. But yeah, if the solver is suggesting you taking hits when you are not using your free hits in 29, that's normal, is the message. So don't freak out if you are seeing like 2 hits, 3 hits, even maybe 4 hits. For your team, I got 5 hits, which was surprising enough. But that's why, using free hit in 29 is a good idea, so that you can also avoid hits. But if you have used it already, or maybe you're sure that you are going to use it in 37, don't freak out. Solver will suggest you taking hits, and I think that's optimal.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks for covering that.
Yeah, sure. And finally, let's talk about optimal free hit team in 29.
Oh, you already have one. Okay, cool.
So this is the same team that we just talked about when we were talking about the wildcard 27 team. But for free hit 29, now that we know the fixtures, the optimal lineup, or optimal squad, I should say, is Kaminsky in the goal, me, Doughty, Reguilon in defense, Gibbs White, Madison, Richarlison, Son, and Bowen in midfield, and Watkins and Tony in forward, Martinez, Awoniyi, Pau, and Osho in the bench. But we were talking about there's some concerns about Richarlison, whether he's available or not for especially this game week. And we have also seen his name in wildcard, like optimal wildcard teams, despite his reduced minutes. Here, his minutes is 71, but it's also true for, I think, 27. Obviously, it is a risky call, and, well, we have time to 29, but this is how it looks like. And I think it kind of, like, this is what you were talking about when you said, well, there are not too many teams playing in 29, and then maybe the team doesn't look that interesting, but I don't know, maybe investing in Tottenham might be an option. Like triple.
Yeah, I mean Tottenham definitely. 3 great midfielders that nobody will mind to have. But maybe going for 2 Luton defenders is maybe something that typically you won't do. But just because out of these 4 games, Luton at home against Nottingham. I mean, I'm not very comfortable with it, but I see why the solver takes Kaminsky and Doughty. So, yeah. It's nothing is too exciting. Also, like Watkins or let's say Villa against West Ham could be a close game. It's quite difficult to take a bet there on who will be better and who will score the points. But of course, Bowen and Watkins are 2 obvious candidates. So no, I see. I mean, I don't get too excited about it, but on the other hand, for my team, probably I need to do it. And I think that's what many people will face. Look at us, we're planning so much ahead, but there will be many people who will wake up the week before and will say, oh shit, only 4 games, and they will hit the free hit if they still have it. So I think for sure that will happen a lot.
Yeah, right. I mean, I think my concern is that all the free hit teams in 29 will look quite similar. They're not, like, again, not too many teams, but that's okay. I mean, there will be people who are not using their free hits, so maybe it is important to, have some points over them. And also here, Son is the captain for this team.
Okay.
And I was checking what happens if I want to reduce the risk. So, like, if I'm risk averse, like what happens? It gives the same team, but the captaincy goes from Son to Watkins because Watkins' ownership is higher right now. But
Okay.
that might change because I feel like Son will be Son will be a popular transfer, but also the same thing for free hit. I think his ownership might be really,
Yeah.
big by
Yeah.
29. We will see.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Okay, great.
That's
Yeah.
all from me about the optimal teams.
Oh, wow. Okay, wow. Yes, you
We
did a
covered a
lot of
lot.
work on that. Thanks for that.
Sure.
So I think we covered also most of our usual content in terms of optimal team.
Mm-hmm.
We can still look at the captaincy options, I think, for
Sure.
the next game week. Yeah.
Yeah, so Holland is at 7.65 EV in the ensemble, so that's the average of all the models.
Yeah.
And he's optimal in, let's see, 5 out of 7 models
Yeah.
we have, and only 2 of them have Saka in front of Holland, and
Mm-hmm.
those are Draft Hound has Saka, but the difference is very small. It's 1.2% difference between them. And
Mm-hmm.
Fantasy Football Fix has Saka ahead of Haaland. And just to remind people, Saka is playing against Sheffield away, and Haaland is playing against Manchester United at home. And then the third, Saka is second with 6.87 EV, and then Son is playing against Crystal Palace with 5.97 EV. Watkins against Luton, 5.92, very close to Son. And finally, Odegaard as 5.57, playing against Sheffield.
Okay.
What do you think though? Like, who are you captaining? Haaland, I assume.
Well, I think the cup game from this week probably
Proved it.
decided it for many people with Haaland scoring 5 goals. And everyone, anyone who had any doubts about the form Haaland is in, probably now they're not doubting anymore. And it's the Manchester derby, so yeah, we can expect probably a big performance from City. Especially hoping that KDB will play as well, because we've seen how important the partnership is between KDB and Haaland. So I will most likely go for Haaland. Saka though is in great form, right? If you look at his 5 last games, he's been scoring in almost every game 10 points or more, and now they are away at Sheffield. So yeah, quite a, let's say, relatively easy opponent, and Saka is in great form. So it's not an easy choice, but in my case, I will go for Haaland. Yes,
Mhm.
you?
Yeah, I think I will go for Haaland.
Okay.
Yeah, there's there's still significant gap for me, so I think I will go
Yeah,
Haaland.
yeah. The interesting one also here in the chart is Son. He's being talked about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a lot of us don't have him because yeah, he's a bit at a higher price point, and we sold him for the Asia Cup. We didn't get him back yet, so could be an interesting player to get back, if possible. Because again, the price point is maybe not so easy to get to. Um, and especially if Richarlison is out, then the team will rely a lot on Son. So that could be a good transfer target as well.
Yeah, you're right.
Hmm. Okay, excellent. I think that kind of covers it for today. Was there anything else?
One more thing. It's a small thing,
Okay.
but so people sometimes ask me where they can find information about the solvers and other analytics tools. I just want to mention that we have the optimization solver that's written in Python. Well, FPL
Mhm.
Review has its own tool. You can also use that, but the tool I wrote, maybe you're not familiar with Python, you don't know how to download stuff, and you're just, in general, a little bit confused, let's say. We created a Colab version. Colab is Google's computational resource on cloud, so you can open this URL. It is tinyurl.com/collab-solver.
Okay.
And if you go to this URL, you will see that it is kind of, there are boxes and then you have triangles next to it. It looks like a play button. You're just following instructions to run the solver. So for your team, you just need to know your team ID, and also you need to have a projection file, a CSV file. Unfortunately, this season we don't have any free resources. Your two options are either FPL review, subscribing to his model and then downloading the CSV from there, or Mikhail Tokvam's model on Patreon. Again, the same structure, it's a CSV file. Instructions actually tell you what to do with those files. You need to put them in a specific folder, and then you are entering your team ID, and then following instructions. And then if you want to solve for, chip strategy, like if you want to replicate what we have done in this episode about like what's the optimal bench boost game week, or what's the optimal wildcard or free hit, among the parameters, there's two things you need to set. The first one is chip limits. This controls how many chips you have for your team. We keep these at 0 because adding chips to the optimization solver makes the problem much more difficult. If you want solver to use bench boost, wildcard, free hit, you just need to replace it with 1, meaning that I have 1 bench boost, 1 wildcard, 1 free hit. You can force solver to use it in a specific game week. You can say that use bench boost in 37 exactly. There's also another parameter called allowed chip game weeks, and you can list several options here. Like for example, for bench boost, you can say that either 34 or 37. For wildcard, either 27 or 31 or maybe 35. And then for free hit, 29, 34, 37. This helps solver to narrow down options so that it can run much faster. So these two parameters, by changing these two parameters and entering your team information, you can run the entire these optimization solvers and get the optimal chip strategy for your team.
Wow.
Obviously, not everyone is into this, but there's a group of people who are already using these sources, and our analytics Discord is the best place to ask if you have any questions about running these. We have people running these like day and night. So I just wanted to give a shout. Because obviously we want to convert more people to analytics, and maybe this is the good time to mention that we have the solver, and you can give it a try.
Okay, and you made it easy to use, let's say.
Yes, that's true.
As easy as possible. Okay, excellent. Though I think we'll finish with covering our mini league. And the top 2 didn't change. Our leader, Richard Smith, with his team Botman Returns, extended his lead thanks to a strong game week score of 78 points. And he has a total score now of 1,773 points. And Richard is now the number 18 in the world. So that's amazing. Good luck, Richard. Keep it up. And number 2 is also the same, Ike's Gooden. He had a score of 67 points and now is on 1,753 points in total. And we have a new number 3. It's Seamus H with his team Postcognition on 1,749 points. So congrats. Yeah.
On this, we received a comment about the second team's name, I think.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
We couldn't say the name, and someone commented on that. I hope I'm reading this correctly, but I think it is Parampara and translates to tradition. The comment says, tradition.
Good to know. All right, thanks for that. I need to check that comment. I didn't see it. Okay, well, we'll wrap it up for today. This was FPL Optimized Podcast, episode number 82. Thanks for listening, and good luck with making your Game Week 27 decisions. The deadline is on Saturday, and there are 6 games kicking off at the same time. So there could be some early leaks. So, get ready for that. Maybe you want to wait, maybe not. Again, another thing you need to think about. But whatever happens, we will be back next week with a new episode. You can subscribe to our podcast so you'll get notified when the next episode is published. And you can also follow us on X. For Sertalp, it's at Sertalp Bilal. And for me, it's at BelfiBB. And we also have a separate account for the pod, which is at FPL Optimized. And on top, as you know, you can also find FPL Optimized on YouTube.
And do you want to talk about your jersey before I close the episode?
Why not? Thanks. The jersey, the jersey. That's actually the name of one of my friends, Jersey, but I should say the jersey. The jersey today is from MVV Maastricht. I talked about the team before. It's my
Yes.
hometown club, and there is a big derby coming up in a few weeks from now. Today, I bought the tickets for me and my kids, so we're going to the big game against our rivals. So I'm ready for that. That's why I'm wearing the MVV shirt. And the other reason is that I'm kind of out of shirts. And I would like to give a shout out to Koen Visser. He's one of our regular listeners, and he offered actually to send me some of his shirts. So thank you very much,
Okay.
Koen. Next week, I'll probably be wearing one of his shirts. So yeah, thanks again, Koen, and I'm looking forward to meeting you. And that's it for today.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And until next time, stay curious and stay analytical. Goodbye.
Goodbye.